The Yukon air, even in the thaw of summer, carries a crisp, ancient chill. Here, in the heart of the Klondike, the land itself dictates the rhythm of life. For Parker Schnabel and his crew, that rhythm had become a frustrating, grinding halt. They stood before a monumental wall of sheer rock, a stubborn grey sentinel barring their path to the Paydirt they knew lay just beyond. It was a geological anomaly, an unexpected titan of stone that had stalled their multi-million-dollar operation. The excavators, usually so powerful, seemed like toys against its immense face, their steel buckets scraping uselessly, sending showers of stone chips clattering into the silence. This was not the loose gravel or soft earth they were accustomed to. This was the very skeleton of the mountains, a solid barrier that had resisted the immense power of glaciers and the slow, patient erosion of millennia. Every day the crew battled the wall, their progress measured in mere inches. The cost of fuel, the wear on the machinery, the ticking clock of the short mining season, it all mounted, creating a palpable tension that hung in the air like the dust. The walls seemed to absorb their efforts, its vast, impassive surface showing little sign of their struggle. It was a primal confrontation, humanity's relentless ambition against the Earth's deep, unmovable strength. It was during a routine, frustrating pass with the excavator that something extraordinary happened. The operator, a young man named Mitch, was methodically clawing at a lower section of the wall. As the steel teeth of the bucket scraped across the stone, a sudden, impossible flash of light caught his eye. It was not the dull gleam of pyrite, fool's gold, which every miner knows and dismisses. This was a brilliant, pure, and unmistakable yellow glint. It was the color of the sun, the color of pure gold. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, a fleeting spark against the grey expanse. Mitch immediately pulled back on the controls, the hydraulics of the great machine sighing as it came to a halt. He radioed Parker, his voice a mixture of confusion and excitement, a flash of gold on the rock face itself. It made no sense. Gold is found in the gravel, in the pay dirt, washed down by ancient rivers and concentrated in pay streaks. It is not typically embedded within a solid wall of bedrock like this. Parker, hearing the call, felt a surge of skepticism followed by intense curiosity. He ordered all machinery to be shut down. The sudden silence that fell over the claim was profound, broken only by the whisper of the wind. The crew gathered at the base of the wall, their eyes scanning the area Mitch had indicated. At first they saw nothing but the monotonous grey stone, scarred by the excavator's teeth. But then, as the sun shifted in the sky, they saw it too. A tiny, almost imperceptible line of brilliant gold, no thicker than a thread, nestled within a deep scratch on the rock's surface. It was so out of place, so unexpected that it seemed magical. The decision was made with a quiet, unspoken consensus. The heavy machinery was to remain silent. This discovery required a delicate touch, not brute force. The crew, who were masters of moving tons of earth with powerful engines, now found themselves armed with far simpler tools, brushes, water hoses, and their own bare hands. They began the slow, painstaking process of cleaning the rock face. They worked with a reverence usually reserved for the final gold cleanup in the sluice plant. Every movement was careful, every spray of water gentle, as if they were tending to a fragile, sleeping giant. As the layers of dust and grime were washed away, the true nature of the discovery began to emerge. The single line of gold was not alone. It was part of a larger, intricate pattern. More lines appeared, tracing deliberate curves and sharp angles across the stone. The crew worked in near silence, their occasional murmurs filled with awe. They were no longer just miners digging for profit. They had become archaeologists, carefully uncovering a secret that had been hidden from the world for over a century. The water ran in muddy rivulets down the rock, carrying away the dust of ages and revealing the work of forgotten hands. With each passing hour, a larger section of the mural was exposed. The process was meditative, almost ceremonial. The crew members, hardened by the physically demanding work of mining, now displayed an incredible gentleness. They called out to each other as new shapes emerged from beneath the dirt. A perfect arc here, a straight line there, all rendered in the same brilliant, pure gold. The material seemed to have been painstakingly inlaid into the rock itself, hammered into carved channels with astonishing precision. It was clearly not a natural formation. This was art. This was a message. The sheer scale of the work was breathtaking. What had started as a small, intriguing glint was becoming a vast tableau. By the end of the second day of careful cleaning, the full spectacle was revealed, and it left the entire crew speechless, standing in silent awe. Before them, stretching across a 30-foot section of the rock wall, was a stunning and deeply moving monument. At the top of the mural, a constellation of stars glittered in inlaid gold. They were not random, they formed a clear, recognizable pattern against the dark stone. The Big Dipper, the celestial guidepost, the North Star's constant companion. Each star was a polished nugget of gold, hammered flush with the rock, catching the sunlight like a distant, fiery beacon. Below this celestial map was something even more personal, more human. Arranged in neat rows were dozens of handprints. They were not impressions left in the stone, but rather outlines, each one meticulously traced with a thick, solid line of the same pure gold. There were large hands and smaller hands, slender ones and broad ones, each unique and individual. It was a silent gathering, a chorus of ghostly gestures frozen in time. The effect was profound. It felt as if the very spirits of the original Klondike prospectors were reaching out across the century, their presence permanently etched onto the very bones of the land they had worked. At the bottom of the mural, beneath the final row of golden hands, were a set of initials and a date, also carefully inlaid with gold, KB 1898. The letters were formed in a simple, unadorned script, and the date placed the monument's creation firmly in the frantic, hopeful heart of the Klondike gold rush. This was not just a piece of art, it was a signed and dated historical document of the most unusual kind. The crew stood back, their tools forgotten at their feet. The quest for Paydirt, the pressures of the mining season, all of it faded into insignificance. They were looking at something far more valuable. This wall was not a barrier to the treasure. The wall was the treasure. News of such a discovery travels fast, even in the remote corners of the Yukon. Within a week, a helicopter could be heard chopping through the northern air, bringing with it Dr. Alistair Finch, a renowned historian from the University of British Columbia. Dr. Finch was a man whose life's work was dedicated to the Klondike gold rush. He had spent decades poring over brittle documents, faded photographs, and scattered artifacts, piecing together the stories of the stampeders. When he arrived at the site, his usually composed academic demeanor gave way to one of pure, unadulterated wonder. He stood before the wall for a long time, simply looking, his eyes tracing every golden line. Dr. Finch approached the mural with the gentle reverence of a scholar entering a lost library. He carried a small kit with a magnifying glass and measuring tools, but for the first hour he used only his eyes. He confirmed what the crew already suspected. The gold was of exceptionally high purity, typical of the Klondike, and the craftsmanship was remarkable. The channels for the inlay, he explained, would have been painstakingly carved into the hard rock using hand steels and hammers, a task that would have taken months, perhaps even an entire season, of dedicated secret work. His attention was immediately drawn to the initials and the date, KB 1898. Dr. Finch's mind, a vast repository of Klondike lore, began to churn. KB, he murmured, more to himself than to the crew gathered around him. Klondike Brotherhood, perhaps, or the name of a claim. But the date, 1898, this was the peak, the absolute zenith of the rush. Tens of thousands of people were pouring into this region. To take the time, to expend the energy and the gold itself to create this, it speaks to a purpose far beyond mere decoration. This was a statement. Finch began to examine the handprints, noting their variations in size and shape. He explained that this was a powerful, symbolic act. In an era before photography was common or accessible for the average sourdough, a handprint was a unique signature, a way of saying, I was here, I existed. Dr. Finch moved his attention to the golden constellation of the Big Dipper at the top of the mural. His explanation held the crew captivated. Look here, he said, pointing upwards. Ursa Major, the Great Bear. To us it's a familiar sight, but to the stampeders it was everything. It was their clock, their calendar, and their compass. In this vast, trackless wilderness, the stars were their only constant guides. The North Star, which the Dipper points to, was their anchor. It symbolized direction, hope, and the way home. Placing it at the pinnacle of their monument was no accident. It was a declaration of their journey. He then elaborated on his theory of the Klondike Brotherhood. He had found scattered references in old letters and diaries to secret fraternities among the miners. These were not formal organizations, but rather pacts of mutual support and loyalty, forged in the face of extreme hardship. The wilderness was unforgiving, and a trustworthy partner was more valuable than any nugget. This mural, he proposed, was the ultimate expression of such a pact. It was a secret charter, a visual oath of allegiance between the men who had shared a discovery, a struggle, and a triumph. The handprints, Finch suggested, were their signatures on this charter. Each man would have pressed his hand to the rock as the artist traced it, a deeply personal and symbolic act. They were immortalizing their bond, not with words, but with their own unique outlines, rendered in the very substance that had brought them together, gold. It was a way of saying that their brotherhood was as pure and enduring as the metal itself. The monument was a shrine to their shared experience, hidden away from the prying eyes of the world, a sacred space for a select few. This was never a treasure map, Dr. Finch stated with certainty. Dispelling one of the crew's initial hopeful theories, the men who made this had already found their treasure. This is the opposite of a map. It is a final statement, a memorial. This wall celebrates the journey, not the destination. It is a monument to the soul of the gold rush itself, the camaraderie, the shared dream, the indomitable human spirit. The question of who possessed the skill and vision to create such a masterpiece hung in the air. Dr. Finch, drawing from his encyclopedic knowledge, offered a compelling possibility. There was a man, he began, his voice dropping to a storyteller's tone, a German immigrant named Carl Becker. He was trained as a stonemason and engraver in the old country before catching gold fever. Records place him on a claim in this very area in 1897 and 1898. He was known to be part of a successful but very private partnership of about 24 men. After they struck it rich, the records of him become sparse. This could be his signature. He pointed to the initials, KB Carl Becker, he said softly. It fits perfectly. He had the artistic skill, the knowledge of stonework, and he was in the right place at the right time. The other miners in his group would have provided the labor, carving the channels under his direction, and the gold itself, which they had pulled from the creek bed below. It would have been their collaborative gift to the future, a secret project undertaken during the long, dark days of the Yukon winter, when traditional mining was impossible. They would have worked by lantern light, their breath frosting in the frigid air. Finch painted a vivid picture of the monument's creation. He described men, their faces weathered by sun and wind, working together with a shared purpose. One man would hold a hand-forged chisel, another would strike it with a heavy hammer, the rhythmic echoing in the frozen silence. Carl Becker would have overseen it all, his artist's eye ensuring every line was perfect. They would have melted their own gold dust and nuggets in a crucible over a blistering fire, pouring the molten metal carefully into the prepared grooves in the stone, a sacred offering back to the land that had given it. This narrative transformed the mural from a static object into a living story. The crew could almost see the flicker of lantern light on the rock face, hear the hushed German accent of the artist directing his comrades, and feel the sense of pride and solemnity that must have filled the air as the final handprint was completed. The monument was not just the work of one man, but the collective effort of a brotherhood led by a master craftsman who chose to use his skills not for fame or fortune, but to create a secret, anonymous testament to their shared human experience in this wild and beautiful place. The discovery fundamentally changed the atmosphere on the claim. The frantic, profit-driven energy of the gold mining operation evaporated, replaced by a quiet, profound sense of custodianship. Parker and his crew looked at their own hands, calloused and dirty from their own labors, and saw a connection to the golden outlines on the wall. They were part of the same continuum, modern-day counterparts to the men of 1898. The same drive had brought them to this remote corner of the world, the same hope for a big payoff, the same reliance on the camaraderie of their crew. The paydirt that lay behind the wall, the original object of their relentless pursuit, now seemed secondary. Its monetary value, which had consumed their thoughts for weeks, was dwarfed by the immense historical and cultural value of the monument they had uncovered. To continue their original plan to blast or tear down the wall was now unthinkable. It would be a desecration, an erasure of a priceless piece of human history. They realized with a shared, unspoken clarity that their season's goal was no longer to extract ounces of gold from the ground. Their new goal was to protect the gold on the wall. Parker made the call. Operations on this part of the claim were to be halted indefinitely. He contacted the territorial government and historical preservation societies, officially reporting the find. The site was cordoned off, not with the industrial tape of a work zone, but with the respectful perimeter of a sacred site. The crew, who had once seen the wall as an enemy, now became its fierce protectors. They patrolled the area, ensuring no harm came to it, their conversations now filled with discussions of preservation techniques and historical significance, rather than mining yields and equipment repairs. This shift in perspective was the true discovery. The gold on the wall had enriched them in a way that Paydirt never could. It had connected them to the very soul of the Klondike, reminding them that they were not just extracting a commodity from the land, but were participants in a long and storied human endeavor. They had stumbled upon a story written in stone and gold, a story of brotherhood, perseverance, and the timeless human need to leave a mark to say we were here. They'd become the keepers of that story, a responsibility they accepted with humble, reverent pride. Today, on August 1st, 2025, the site of the Klondike Brotherhood Monument is protected. It has become a designated heritage site, a place of pilgrimage for historians, archaeologists, and those who seek to understand the deeper spirit of the North. The story of its discovery by a modern mining crew has become a new chapter in the endless saga of the Yukon. It serves as a powerful reminder that the Earth still holds profound secrets, and that the greatest treasures are not always the ones we are looking for. The wall stands as a bridge between two centuries, a silent testament to a shared human spirit. The monument itself continues to inspire wonder. The golden stars of the Big Dipper still point faithfully towards the north, a timeless guide. The handprints gleaming in the Arctic sun seem to possess a living warmth. They are more than just outlines, they are a presence. They represent the countless forgotten souls who came to this land with a dream, who endured unimaginable hardships, and who found their true wealth not in the weight of their poke, but in the strength of their companions. The monument is their legacy, a final, beautiful statement of what truly mattered to them. For Parker's crew, the experience was transformative. They finished their season on other parts of their claim, but their work was imbued with a new sense of purpose and respect for the history buried beneath their feet. They had been reminded that the ground they worked was not just dirt and rock, but a landscape saturated with human stories of hope, loss, and endurance. They had been given a glimpse into the heart of the Klondike legend, and in doing so, had become a part of it themselves. Their names are now linked with Carl Becker and his forgotten brotherhood. The Klondike Brotherhood Monument endures, a secret kept by the mountains for over 125 years. It is a work of art born from hardship, a shrine to friendship forged in the wilderness. It teaches us that the most enduring legacies are not measured in ounces or dollars, but in the connections we forge and the stories we leave behind. The golden hands on the wall reach out through time, a silent, glittering reminder that in the great, wild emptiness of the North, the warmth of human fellowship is the most precious discovery of all. Please subscribe to our channel History Documentary Hub for more insightful videos and intriguing content.